The battery belt is all about creating a new supply chain, starting with lithium. It's a rare soft metal mined from hard rock in the ground. That metal is extracted and used to make the cells that go into a lithium-ion battery. Each battery can contain hundreds or even thousands of those cells. Those battery packs will be installed in electric vehicles, providing the power for clean energy transportation. All of that, from mining to EV manufacturing, is happening right here in North Carolina.
3D scanners allow investigators to essentially step right back into crash scenes well after the cars are towed away, capturing a 360-degree view in about 20 minutes, what used to take several hours. The camera not only helps police clear roads a whole lot faster, but gives precise measurements that help determine speed and distance. And in those cases resulting in criminal charges, these animations allow jurors to walk right back through the scene.
The scam is called business email compromise, or BEC. The FBI says scammers often gain access to email and then, using malware, monitor exchanges until it's time to strike. They trick victims into thinking it is a legitimate exchange and often get money transferred to their accounts.
Our roads are getting more and more crowded, whether it's distracted drivers, people trying to beat that red light, or even the sun hitting your windshield at a bad angle. There are plenty of pitfalls on the road. We found some areas where defensive driving should be your rule of the road.
It all started with a study of 50 Raleigh homes, looking under the bed, on the kitchen counter, and even up in the shower head. He wanted to see how many different species of spiders he could find in the homes. And unless you're a fan of spiders, you're not going to like the answer.
And that difference is important to know if you're considering whether an EV works for your family. There are 2,500 public charging ports across North Carolina, but just 760 are fast chargers, and a whopping 547 only work with Teslas. Compare that to the idea that there's tens of thousands of gas pumps available in the state, and you realize electric has a long way to go.
Let's start with North Carolina's giant infrastructure gap, an estimated $17 to $26 billion in needed water and sewer upgrades. Much of that is small rural systems. Yet the state fund designed to deal with that is just $30 million. Truly a drop in the bucket.
For years, the Glens received letter after letter from the state's Retirement Systems Division, telling them what their payout was and that it was accurate. Then in 2018, another letter, this one, shattered everything. It told the Glens there'd been a mistake and that for 17 years, the state had overpaid them more than $241,000. And now Joe and Penny had to pay every cent back.
The part of the web we use, the surface web, where you'll find things like Facebook and Google, accounts for only 4% of the internet. Below the surface is the deep web for things like protected medical and legal records. That's 90% of the internet. Keep going down and you'll get to the dark web, where you'll find illegal marketplaces for things like drugs and stolen personal information. That's what we went looking for.
So where is Raleigh growing up and out? Here in downtown, the PNC Tower is still the tallest in town at 40 stories. Since 2020, Raleigh City Council has approved 26 rezoning requests that would allow developers to build towers 20 or 40 stories tall. And right now, another 13 are working their way through the city's planning process. This is what Raleigh's skyline could look like if developers build to the max. Most of this development is happening downtown or in the 7 designated growth centers. The 2030 comprehensive plan says the city should direct 60% of future growth to these areas and dozens of smaller mixed-use community centers. Half of that growth should happen along these 4 bus rapid transit corridors.
High-speed chases are high danger for officers, suspects, and the rest of us on the road. How to handle them differs greatly from department to department. We're talking about the number of vehicles that can actively take part in a chase, to the use of roadblocks to force a fleeing vehicle to stop and end the danger, or the use of a pit maneuver where an officer uses his vehicle to get the other vehicle to spin out. And finally, deploying tire deflation devices, also known as stop sticks, to blow out the suspect's tires.
Walls and floors opened up during a major remodel of a home in our area. If something is not up to code, it's easy for an inspector to spot. But if the work isn't permitted or inspected and gets covered up, you could be dealing with potentially deadly hidden dangers.
The trouble spot was here, and here's why. When this light turns red for drivers going straight, the left arrow for the drivers coming off the belt line turned green at about 1.5 seconds. The problem, even at full speed, it took 3 or more seconds for drivers going straight to reach that second intersection, and the timing could lead to T-bone crashes.
On average, North Carolina moms and dads are spending $9,200 on the cost of daycare. Meantime, the cost of tuition at one of North Carolina's public universities is $7,200, and regulators say that's a problem.
Keto, vegan, gluten-free, the list of diet trends goes on, and things like cow's milk, pasta, even popular styles of chips continue to be replaced by nut-based products. And what is healthy for one person can be poisoning for another, especially as more kids become allergic to food.
Since the county is still reviewing sales until the last day of December, we don't know how much of an increase the revaluation will bring. But let's say home values go up 30%. A $400,000 home would now be valued at $520,000. Your tax bill would go from $2,628 to $3,416. That's a $788 increase at today's tax rate. County commissioners would need to lower that by 15 cents for your tax bill to stay the same.
WRAL Investigates hit the road earlier this year to investigate pandemic speeding. But we continue to hear complaints about reckless speeders getting away with it in court. In 1 week in Wake County, we found 69 drivers in court for going 100 miles per hour or over. We're talking 124, 140, even 150 miles per hour. So we went to court to see what happened.
Using information compromised in a data breach is like doing a puzzle. If a criminal collects enough pieces, they can drain your bank accounts, rack up charges to your credit card, or take out loans in your name. But the more security steps you take, the harder the puzzle is to put together, and the better chance you have at protecting your accounts, even if your information has been exposed.
State inspectors pull 10% of a school system's bus fleet each year to determine an overall defect score, where the lower the number, the better. And some buses get parked instantly. We're talking issues like leaking fuel lines between the tank and engine, the bus's stop sign failing because too many warning lights are out, and even hydraulic issues that prevent the main door from opening in an emergency.
The food delivery market more than doubled during the pandemic, and all that growth helped fuel the rise in what's known as virtual kitchens or a ghost kitchen. Food from a virtual kitchen is cooked at a real permitted restaurant, but it's sold under a different name and only online for takeout and delivery. It can be a way for restaurants to sell more food, cater to more tastes, and make more money. But what does it actually mean for you?
So right now, if the result is positive, you stop and go right to quarantine. Brownstein wants extra steps, like a medical decision before confirming the positive. But there's also a top section to this chart. If a patient tests positive but has no symptoms and no known exposure, isolate for 24 hours and retest. If it's positive again, that's it. But if follow-up tests are negative, a doctor could decide the first test was a false positive, clearing you to return to work or school.
Mechanics liens are a common legal tool garages can use when there's a billing dispute with the customer. The garage can take these liens all the way to civil court and try to convince a judge to let them sell the car for the amount a customer owes. From 2019 through 2021, only about 34% of liens filed in North Carolina went that far. But in the same period, Pop Boys tried to sell every single car they put a lien on.
So what really happened in Moore County? One engineering expert theorizes it this way. The first substation attacked is in Carthage, where a lower voltage distribution site is located. But the most critical damage happened next at the West End substation, which is connected to a high-powered line. So just a few gunshots took out the entire electrical loop that circles Pinehurst and Southern Pines, robbing power from 45,000 customers. Davy Crockett, King of the Wild Frontier, the first movie filmed in North Carolina in 1955. Since then, other blockbusters have followed. Bull Durham in '88, Forrest Gump in '94, Talladega Nights in '06, and Iron Man 3 in 2013. Not long after Iron Man hit theaters, moves by the legislature sent the state's film industry crashing to the ground. But the lights, camera, action are making a comeback.
Wake County Deputy Janice Carter was responding to an emergency call. Dunston slowed down to pull over at the curb.
And by the time he got over, boom. This is where our car was at. And this is a piece off of my vehicle.
Deputy Carter's vehicle came to rest just a bit farther down in the same ditch. She's still out on medical leave due to a neck injury.
70 inches. That's the height of star Alabama quarterback Bryce Young. 5'10". For a normal 21-year-old sapling, well, there's nothing wrong with 5'10". Except Bryce Young is about to step into the NFL, a collection of redwoods, if you will. So does his height really matter, or can we not see the forest for the trees? The average height of an NFL starting quarterback is about 6'2". That's how tall I am. The last number 1 pick for the Panthers was Cam Newton. He's 6'5". Now to the history books. Since the AFL-NFL merger in 1970, 522 quarterbacks have been drafted. 21 have been 6 foot even. Think Joe Theismann and Drew Brees. 6 of them were 5'11". Russell Wilson is the big one at that height. And finally, at 5'10", where Bryce Young stands, just 3 have been selected. Doug Flutie, Joe Hamilton, and Kyler Murray. Throw Young into the mix, and that's 3 Heisman Trophy winners. Teams have proven they'll take a chance if a player had phenomenal production in college. So what has that gotten them? 9 drafted quarterbacks at 6 feet or shorter have started a playoff game. 3 have won a Super Bowl. So with Young at 1, you're betting on an outlier. But he's been an outlier his whole career. He shattered high school football records in California. He's the only Alabama quarterback to win the Heisman. If his play stays at the same level, he could help take the Panthers to new heights.
With our region of North Carolina growing so rapidly, let's do a quick check-in on our knowledge of the area. Traditionally, the Triangle is named after the cities Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill, home to 3 prestigious universities. You likely already know that when you connect them on a map, you draw a triangle. The Triangle metro area includes many more cities and towns. You might not be as familiar with the area we've been talking about for weeks, Israel and Gaza, and the horrible suffering too many people have had to endure throughout the Israel-Hamas war with no end in sight. Israel is a Middle Eastern country on the Mediterranean Sea, surrounded by Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria. Israel is about 8,500 square miles. Comparatively, the Triangle is about 5,500 square miles. Gaza is a Palestinian territory sandwiched between Israel, Egypt, and the Mediterranean. It's 140 square miles, almost the same size as Raleigh. When Hamas stormed Israel from Gaza on October 7th, militants rampaged towns and cities. Rocket attacks struck as far as Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv is about the same distance from Gaza as Raleigh is from Sanford. These rocket attacks are exactly what Israel's Iron Dome, its missile defense system, is designed to defend against. It launches guided missiles to intercept incoming rockets midair to great success. But on October 7th, it appears the Iron Dome was overwhelmed. At least 1,400 people in Israel died in the Hamas rampage. We've been telling you since then about how Israel has been responding. Israel issued evacuation orders as it prepared a ground invasion in Gaza, forcing people from their homes. Imagine half of Raleigh's population was forced to move south of the Beltline. But Gaza's population is more than 4 times that of Raleigh, 2 million people. And water, electricity, and fuel have been cut off. Now imagine multiple hospitals have stopped functioning because of fuel shortages and bombing damage. And the only way to escape or get humanitarian aid is one crossing that has been heavily bombarded. That's what's happened at Gaza's Rafah border crossing, where trucks with vital supplies are slowly getting through. Right now, only a small and select number of people have been allowed to leave through the Rafah crossing. When you think about it, this conflict is happening in a relatively small geographic area. But what's happening there is so catastrophic, it's creating tensions all over the Middle East and here at home.